13 F1 drivers are out of contract at the end of 2024, so surely there's going to be some moving around. Drivers in new teams is always an exciting prospect, so I've gone through all 10 teams and done my best to predict what I think the 2025 F1 grid will look like. I've made some absolute worldy calls in the past and some absolute stinkers. So how will I fare in probably the most volatile F1 driver market in history? Let's talk about it. Three teams have no change. Let's start with Mercedes. Of course, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Both got 2-year deals last season. Look, I don't think it's the smartest partnership in terms of balance for Mercedes, for Toto to try and manage two alphas in a team. Never works unless you have a dominant package, which Mercedes certainly don't. But if that W15 cooks, I guess we'll see. Talent individually, unquestionable. Good luck, Toto. Then, of course, McLaren. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. No change here. Piastri has his contract until the end of 2026. Lando literally just renewed. Who knows to when? They're kind of keeping that a bit hush, at least 2027, I'm seeing suggested. Obviously, the potential for a Red Bull transfer has been talked about a lot, in a big part because Horner and Marco have been flirting with him a lot, let's be honest. I've seen some people be like, oh, Lando's scared of a fight with Max, that's why he won't be his teammate. Like, what, was Max scared of Lewis by not being his teammate at Mercedes when Bottas was nowhere near Lewis? Like, come on, let's be real. Lando's got a better opportunity of winning a world title if he stays at McLaren and builds that team up with him as the top dog, which he still is. All right, Piastri did a good job last year, but he wasn't better than Lando, not by any stretch. David Sanchez, Rob Marshall come in alongside. Stella's obviously been cooking. Zach Brown's getting sponsors left, right and centre. New wind tunnel, new simulator. The team is showing everything. Lando needs to have faith, and he just needs to iron out his quality mistakes, and he's going to be there. And then obviously Piastri, what can you say, right? It's not even the on-track stuff that's impressed me the most. It's the mental game. He's just so dialed in. He's so chilled. He's ice cold, man. This kid's got it. And finally, Ferrari. I'm saying no change. Charles Leclerc did just extend his contract, and I'm saying they retain Carlos Sainz. Charles' extension has just been announced just before Lando's. That's looking like it's probably going to be till like 2029, but again, not officially confirmed. Everything I just said about Lando applies to Charles, right? Is Charles scared of going in alongside Max at Red Bull? No, he's got that seat at Ferrari. He's leading that team forward. Red Bull will not dominate forever. There's going to be another team. Who knows which team it's going to be, but if Leclerc and Norris can put themselves top of their castles respectively, then they've got a great opportunity. But Carlos Sainz has been talked about a lot, and I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who don't think he's going to be in the Ferrari next season. He's been linked with that Audi project time and time again. In fact, his dad, his 61-year-old dad, Carlos Sainz Sr., just won Dakar in an Audi. In fact, he was quoted saying that he's been openly discussing the prospect of an Audi F1 move with his son. Logically, at home with Carlos being in the Audi family, it is logical we talk and exchange opinions about what Team Audi could become in the future. But making that move right now would be a pretty wild decision from Carlos, in my opinion. Audi is still keeping that team at arm's length, right? They're already own 25, is it 50% they're going to buy this year? I think it's 50% this year, 75% in 2025, and then 100% in 2026. There's no Audi branding anywhere near it. Still running Ferrari engine, still got the very questionable title sponsorship. And at the end of the day, the car is struggling down towards the back of the field, whereas Carlos was the only non-Red Bull driver to win a race last year, for crying out loud. Look, McLaren did show you can turn things around very quickly, so did kind of Aston Martin, but I think they're the exceptions and not the rules. And do I see the same from that Sauber team this season? Enough to justify Carlos going there a year before the Audi project actually fully starts with the new regulations? I don't think so. I think an extension makes sense, at least a year, probably 2 years. I think that's what Carlos is pushing for. Again, that's been kind of rumoured in the media. You keep the most balanced driver pairing in F1, in my opinion, with Carlos and Charles. And it means that in a couple of years' time, Carlos is welcome to entertain the Audi project when that actually starts. But do I see him leaving for Sauber now? Absolutely not. Just keep him, man. I don't see any upside in leaving. Not right now, anyway. 7 teams to go, and 5 of those 7 teams will, in my predictions, be undergoing 1 driver change. So let's go from what I think is most likely to the biggest shout, the biggest stretch, okay? Because the chance of nothing unlikely happening is in itself unlikely, okay? So hear me out. Racing Bulls SPA is the company name according to the official 2024 F1 entry list, so that is what I'm going to be calling them this season. That's drawn a line under it. It's Racing Bulls. We're done. But what about that driver lineup, right? So obviously Ricciardo, Tsunoda. This season, one of those will not be in that car in 2025. I believe the one staying in that car for 2025 will be Yuki. He's come a long way from a rookie who would prang it into the wall and constantly make mistakes in his first season and really disappointed. He was surprised himself that he got kept on, to a pretty well-rounded, very, very fast, still on the occasional error, but the diamond is shining, more so than it was anyway. Now, he is understandably being linked with Aston Martin. Honda coming on from 2026 onwards in a almost works deal with that team. It's an exclusive engine supply deal to that team to start with anyway. But I don't think now is the time for Yuki. I don't quite think it's the time just yet. And all will become a bit more clear later on. Red Bull want to keep that team a bit closer this season, which implies they should move up through the field, given how good the RB19 is. If you've got Daniel and Yuki cooking on all burners as well, I'd be worried if I was Alpine for sure. They've moved a lot of staff from Faenza over to the UK as well. The team's going in a good direction, but then you look at the Red Bull talent pool and there's no real drivers shining through that are going to come through and take Yuki's seat away from him. Apart from one, I guess, which actually is the driver I'm going to replace Ricciardo with, which of course is Liam Lawson, obviously, right? I'm saying Tsunoda Lawson in 2025. For me, it's 2025 Red Bull or bust for Daniel Ricciardo. If he doesn't get that seat in 2025, I think he'll leave the sport. If he does, then he'll be happy. But we'll see what I think. Liam must surely have been given assertions from Red Bull that a 2025 F1 seat was going to be his, with almost complete guarantee, right? For him to accept the reserve role after an incredible job he did when he did deputise. He put his name in the mouths of many, many teams on this grid. Red Bull need to make sure they don't let him slip away, and I'm sure they've given him those assertions. So Red Bull then, Red Bull Racing, they will of course be retaining the services of Max Verstappen in 2025 onwards, as a shock to absolutely nobody. I actually can't imagine Max driving for anyone else. And to be honest, do I think that Max would want to go through the faff of moving to another team if Red Bull kind of fall off in 2026 and going through all the rigmarole of like building a team up when he got such close ties to Red Bull? I don't think he'd be asked, to be honest. I think by that stage he'll probably have another couple of world titles and he'll be doing sports car racing or something, to be fair. Which, you know, like, there's a lot more to motorsport than F1, so I can't begrudge him for that. But alongside Red Bull, will it be Sergio Perez or will it be Daniel Ricciardo? Checo fans, I'm sorry, right? This is like the 3rd time I've done this in a row, right? 3 years in a row where I've said Checo's going to leave Red Bull. I'm more sure now than ever, because surely, like, we can't have a season like we had in 2023 again. Checo can't get away with that. The problem isn't that Max is beating him, it's that far too often so many other drivers are beating him as well. Yes, Checo finished 2nd in the Drivers' Championship, okay? Because there wasn't a consistent 2nd quickest car all season. Aston was 2nd quickest at the start, McLaren 2nd quickest probably in the middle most of the time, Ferrari most of the time at the end with Leclerc getting that upgrade in Japan, and Mercedes occasionally throughout the season. Right? There was no consistent 2nd quickest car. That's what got Checo out of jail. Like, look at that clear top 5 that we have in F1 right now, the top 5 teams. On average, he was 8th out of those 10, only ahead of Piastri and Stroll. In fact, his average qualifying position of P9.09 in 2023 is lower than Fernando Alonso's average qualifying position in 2022 in an Alpine, P8.27. Fernando's not even known for his one-lap pace. Unfortunately, without a massive turnaround, this is just another season of L's for Sergio Perez. Look, if Checo can close that average quali gap to, what, a couple of tenths, okay, on average, and stop tripping up over people, he's giving himself a great opportunity to keep that seat into 2025 and onwards. He brings huge commercial pull to Red Bull, which is of course valuable. That's the whole reason any team is in Formula One, for marketing. And we know that Checo on his day is an incredible racing driver, an incredibly reliable racing driver, but he's not been that guy as of recent. I think Ricciardo will beat Tsunoda over the course of a season. I expect Ricciardo to beat Tsunoda over the course of a season, and they wouldn't have put him in if Red Bull didn't think he had a shot back at the top seat. Although last time I backed Ricciardo to do well was in his first year at McLaren. I mean, he did win a race. Yuki's not got a chance at that Red Bull seat. That's never happening. Lawson's got a left field shout, more so than Tsunoda. I hope they've learnt from their mistakes in promoting juniors too early. Lawson's day will come, I think, at that team. He could definitely be the guy who takes the baton from Max Verstappen, but not quite today. Question is, where will Checo go? Will he leave to another team or will he retire? Again, we'll get into that. Next, I want to talk about Aston Martin. Okay, Alonso, Stroll, one of these drivers staying, one of these drivers is going. In my opinion, in 2025, this lineup will contain Fernando Alonso and not Sir Lancelot. Without Fernando last season, Aston Martin wouldn't have looked much better than Alpine, let's be honest. Stroll couldn't follow in the footsteps of Alonso, which, look, at the end of the day, I think Alonso's one of the all-time greats, so I can't begrudge him too much for that, but also I think Fernando's going to be extra motivated to stick around because of a certain Madrid Grand Prix that's on its way in 2026. So then that leaves Lance. Look, if Aston Martin's 2025 WEC project did not exist, then I would not be making this prediction. I would be predicting it's still Alonso and Stroll for 2025, but it does. At the end of the day, Stroll has achieved, I think, the maximum of what he can in F1. He's got his podiums. He's still young, yes. He's been in the sport so long now. Like, I don't see him getting any better, surely. I think bringing him over to that project will also bring more eyeballs because at the end of the day, he's an established Formula One driver. But if Lawrence and the Aston Martin shareholders want this team to be really taken seriously, I think they need a really serious driver in there alongside Fernando. I'm giving up on that light. I've already said Yuki isn't going to be the driver to go into that team, even though the Honda link, I think that will come in time, but not quite yet. So who? I am predicting that Alex Albon will replace Lance Stroll at Aston Martin in 2025. Alonso and Albon would be a pairing and a half. All right, Albon's into his prime years. He'll be, 28 by the time the season starts. Drogovic is there, of course, right? But I think the opportunity to sign Alex Albon, if that presents itself, a team that already has the infrastructure and already has all of that stuff that Williams, it's going to take time. They're a lot further ahead than Williams on the road, and he's not got time to waste as Alex. Not to mention that, Fernando, I know everyone mentions his age, it's always going to be mentioned. That could be an opportunity for Albon to become de facto team leader when Alonso eventually retires from F1, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen to everyone, right? Albon could put himself in a really strong position at that team. I genuinely think Aston Martin is Alex's best, most realistic opportunity at a title fight whilst he's still in his 20s, for sure. To stay at Williams and build that team up would be very, very admirable from Alex. Okay, and I'd be very proud of him if he did that. Actually, I'd be quite excited to see how that would turn out. But Fernando knows more than most, right? Making the right move at the right time is pivotal. And I still think, as much as Aston Martin ended last season on a bit of a downer, that early season jump was not by accident. Now, yes, if he does go in and get beaten by Fernando, that could put a real spanner in the momentum of his career, but I don't think Alex should be afraid of anyone apart from Max. That would be understandable, right? So then Williams, what do they do? Albon's left to Aston Martin. What's going on? James Vowles, he's crying, right? Tears. But also, hang on, Tommo, you said that 5 teams have one transfer, and this is one of those 5 teams. It is correct. I think Logan will do enough. I think he'll make a significant step forward this season. I saw enough in his peaks to almost feel the same way I felt about Yuki, because Yuki had a difficult first season, but his peaks were good. Race pace, quali pace, his peaks were actually decent. He should have out-qualified Alex if he didn't just drive over a little bit of painted white line stupidity, right, in Saudi Arabia. The momentum shift of out-qualifying Alex Albon in only your second F1 qualifying session would have been big. And obviously Vowles must see enough in him, right? He must see enough to be like, give this kid an extra year and he could be someone to lead us forward. Look, I did say in my one transfer every team should make video that, you know, Logan was the weakest link, and I think he certainly is right now. Vowles is cooking, Pat Fry's come in, obviously Albon's doing a great job, but he will improve over the course of the year, and I think by the end of the season, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can't wait till right at the end of the season to make a decision on Logan, because it's a driver market. There's lots of drivers potentially available, and if you leave it too late, you could miss out on a really good Albon replacement, for example. However, when I look at those peaks and then I look back at his junior career as well, allow me to give him benefit of the doubt, I guess. It's 2020. Logan is joint leading the Formula 3 Championship going into the final race, race 2 of 2 in Mugello. Level on points with Oscar Piastri, 9 points clear of Teo Pourchaire, 17.5 clear of Frederic Vesti, 32 points clear of Liam Lawson. That season was stacked with talent and he was right there. He was unlucky in that race. He got sandwiched, didn't he? Kind of coming out of that long right-hander, going into the left-hander. He just kind of got pincered. Ended up P3 in the standings, but it was a super, super closely run thing. And when you look at how well regarded Piastri is, Pourchaire is, Lawson is, Vesti is, Sargent was there on merit. If Albon's pulling out these Norris, Russell, Leclerc-esque level performances in a Williams, then, well, of course Logan's going to get slapped. But if you don't rate Alex that highly and you still think, he's lucky to get the opportunity back and he's just in a Williams, so it's not really top tier pace, like whatever, then you're gonna look on Logan's season differently based off that. Obviously, Alex didn't make it look good for him, but it's very hard to tell because that's only 1 point of reference with Logan. Now, I think Sargent will still be in a Williams in 2025, but who will he be alongside? It might take a bit of explaining, but I think the logic checks out. I'm saying that Esteban Ocon will partner Logan Sargent at Williams in 25. Alex leaving would be a huge loss, of course, right? But he's not irreplaceable, of course not. And in many ways, I think Esteban would be a really smart replacement, okay? So he's 27. He's actually a bit younger than Alex. He's like half a year younger than Alex. He has more experience and has been through the, he lost his seat when he really shouldn't have. I mean, you can definitely argue Alex did kind of deserve to lose his seat after how bad 2020 went. But Ocon certainly did not deserve to lose his seat. Still managed to find a way back into F1 and has established himself ever since. Both are very, very fast drivers. And look, I know Ocon is not the most popular. I like him, and some of it is understandable. Okay, he's very aggressive with his teammates, too aggressive with his teammates. I think that's his biggest weakness, because ultimately I think his pace and his general race management is very strong. I mean, you look at his head-to-head with Fernando Alonso over their 2 years together at Alpine, just in terms of pace, right, quali pace, and that's hardly anything in it. I think Fernando did the better job, but not by much. But then you look at the Mercedes relationship that Esteban had in the past. He was reserve at Mercedes, Toto was his manager, and he would have worked with James Vowles at Mercedes. There's a pre-existing relationship there. I'm sitting here assuming that was a good relationship and James would look on Esteban positively. Maybe he wouldn't. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes at the end of the day. But if Alex is to leave and Williams need to have their contingencies in place in case he does, because you can't get caught with your trousers down, you know what I mean? Like, as a worst case scenario, you want to make sure you've got good backup options there, and I think Esteban should be top of that pile. But then you must be wondering, why would Ocon leave the great French Revolution at Alpine? Well, let's talk about Alpine, shall we? Because this is the final team with just one change. And with Ocon out, that means Gasly stays in. Pierre was very impressive in 2023. He just snuck into my top 10 drivers of the year. Coming into that team, having been part of the Red Bull family for his whole career, his ups and downs, has cultivated a very well-rounded driver. I think Pierre lets his emotions get in the way sometimes. I think that's his biggest weakness, I would say. But in terms of his quali pace, I mean, we saw that in 2021. His quali was incredible in that AlphaTauri. And to jump in alongside Ocon, a team, Esteban's been established at for so long, that demonstrates a driver who is adaptable, which is a hugely important skill in F1. You don't get a sprint podium and a really impressive podium in Zandvoort in your debut season at a team that is at, uncanny valley 6th best team. You don't do that by accident. Alpine love a bit of marketing. Pierre, to my understanding, he's more popular than Esteban in France as well, in that domestic market. I can really see this team building more around him going forward than Esteban. I think Esteban, he's given it 2020, 21, 22, 23. If anything, they've moved backwards. I would say actually they've certainly moved backwards given the podiums Ricciardo was able to get in 2020. I mean, look at the revolving door of team principals since Esteban joined in 2020. Abiteboul, Bukowski, Safnauer, and now Faman, and he's only interim anyway, so there might be a new one announced this season. That would be 5 team principals in 5 seasons. I mean, look at how far ahead Renault were of Williams in 2020, and look at how close Williams are to Alpine now. I mean, look at technical director, right? Pat Fry made the move from Alpine to Williams, citing a lack of ambition, basically. His statement going to Williams: the thing that excites me about this opportunity is that the board is fully on board with what it's going to take to move this place forward. They're willing to invest what it takes and support us in building a team. That inherently means that Alpine didn't offer him that, confidence, I guess. Vowles and Fry have both worked with Ocon in the past. Bring them back together. Come on. So then who's replacing Esteban? Well, look, I think there's 2 options, really, and I really think they should be promoting from their junior academy. Jack Doohan, first and foremost. He's not doing F2 this season, but he's done F2 the last 2 years. He finished 6th in 2022 and 3rd last season in 2023. Very high highs, struggled with consistency. I mean, at times Jack looked unreal. WEC is a potential opportunity with Alpine this year. I would have liked to see him do Super Formula like Tao Pourchaire is, because I think that's such a good proving ground, because it kind of sits between F2 and F1 in terms of car performance. But all in all, I think Doohan's done like 4 FP1s for Alpine. He's done a bunch of old car testing with Alpine. I think he would come in definitely way more prepared than the next driver we're going to talk about, which is Victor Martin, who, I've gassed up Ollie Behrman a lot, okay? And I do believe Ollie's got the sauce, right? Not just because he's from Chelsea. But Victor beat Ollie in F3 in 22. He also beat Ollie in F2 last season. He finished ahead of Ollie in points, was the best scoring rookie. Victor Martin is a serious driver. He's also a French driver, which, is going to help, right? Alpine, full French project. Ocon out, Martin in, would make sense. They've done so much work with Jack Doohan. They've given him so much practice, so much testing. For them to then not give him that seat and give it to another Alpine junior. But if Victor goes and wins F2 this year, which don't write him off. Do not write Victor Martin off. You'd be silly to. Whoa, that gives them one hell of a decision to make at Alpine. That's for sure. So now, 2 more teams to go, both with double swaps. Let's start with Sauber. Audi are fully taking the reins in 2026, as we know. I think they'll be up to 50% ownership of that team this year, and then 75% in 25, and then 100% in 2026. We know they want Hülkenberg, or they wanted Hülkenberg. Haas chose to take up their 1-year extension. He's got a relationship with Seidel from his old Porsche days. Yes, I know Porsche's not Audi, but it's all part of the VW group, so it's all connected somewhat. If I'm looking at Bottas and Hülkenberg, right, which are the 2 more comparable drivers because of the amount of experience both of them have. Hülkenberg's older. He's not necessarily got the same mileage in him as Valtteri, but I'm picking Hulk any day of the week. I really am. Like, Hülkenberg's shown so much in terms of especially 1-lap pace. It's been difficult for him in the races, but this Haas just eats for its tyres, doesn't it? So, just like Fernando, I think Hülkenberg has shown that age is but a number, and taking some time away from F1 can reinvigorate the hunger you've got for the sport. And I think Hülkenberg would be a fantastic signing for Sauber to become Audi. We haven't seen enough from Valtteri. He's not been able to show. Hülkenberg was just able to show more. Albon was able to show more in a Williams as well. Like, them 2 really shone, even though they were towards the back. And Bottas or Joe, neither of them were able to shine. Now, in my one transfer video, I did say Bearman to Sauber. I felt like they were a safer pair of hands if you're Ferrari to give you a young driver to than Haas. I guess the thing is that Ferrari don't have that sway at that team like they used to, because obviously Audi are coming in now. I still think there's, room for a swap deal. Give Bearman a couple of years at that team, then maybe swap him out for Sainz. I think that's kind of mutually beneficial potentially. But do I think that's actually going to happen? No, I do not. I mean, it has to be. Come on. Théo Pourchaire, please. Like, he's doing Super Formula this year. I'm sure he'll smash it, especially if he does. If he wins Super Formula, they have to give him a seat in 2025. They can't keep on leaving him on the sidelines, man. Pourchaire's career is pretty incredible. I mean, he took 3 years to win F2. Well, no, he was fifth, he was second, and then he was first. Like, that consistency in junior Formula is very rare to come across. Okay, he did a stonkingly good job in F2. He made his fair share of mistakes, but I think, he's done so much FP2 running with that team. He's been part of that academy for so long now. He wouldn't be coming in as a completely green rookie. He's had experience to that team. And I think he's still so young as well, Théo, and all. And then who knows, maybe in the future it's a Sainz-Pourchaire partnership at Sauber Audi. So then finally we have Haas. Okay, so to quote Ao Komatsu, I think the car we'll take to Bahrain is still at the bottom. It's not the aerodynamic team's fault, but the timing of decisions so far has delayed development. They didn't have much time, basically. It was smart to set expectations low. They should have been low, even though, this is a car, again, Hülkenberg got into Q3 8 times last year, K-Mag got it into Q3 3 times. The ceiling performance is there. It's just, don't win points on Saturday at the end of the day. So with Hülkenberg going to Sauber, I am also suggesting Kevin Magnussen departs. It really comes down to what direction they take that car in 2024, right? Because you had a car at the end of the year, a new spec car that K-Mag preferred, an old spec car that Hülkenberg improved. In fact, we talked about this, me and Ollie. I asked him, he's tried both cars out. He did FP1s in both the Hülkenberg spec and the Magnussen spec, and he felt a difference. Ollie said he preferred the newer spec, but obviously he's a rookie, jumping into that car. He's not an established driver with years of experience like Magnussen and Hülkenberg. One needs a bit more of a V, one needs a bit more of a U. If they settle on a more old spec V philosophy, then Hülkenberg's going to continue to cook. If they go down the more kind of new spec, then maybe Magnussen surprises a few people this year. However, my prediction is that Kevin will not be in that seat and he will be replaced. But by who? I'm suggesting that Gene Haas uses his noggin, right? If he doesn't want to invest in that team, fine. But bring in Alex Palou. Make it happen. He's desperate to get into F1, clearly, right? All the moves he's making in terms of, with McLaren, then not with McLaren, that's all connected to, and his agents as well, by the way, breaking away from his agents. Like, he's trying everything he can to secure an F1 drive. And I think he would be a really smart pickup for Haas. I think he would bring big eyeballs from the US, not just from Spain, he's Spanish, and potentially 2 Spanish Grand Prix in 2026, but also from just the US, right? I know he's not American, but he's been in IndyCar. He's a 2-time IndyCar champion. This guy's got a huge following in the States. Commercially, I think Alex would bring a massive amount of backing to that team. I said in my one transfer video, I think that's where they need to plug the gap. If Gene doesn't want to invest his own money, that's his decision. Okay, I'd rather he did invest his own money, but if you want that team to be self-sufficient, then Gene, get a driver in who pays the bills. And Palou, come on. Sure, it's a risk having Palou in, who's not raced in F1 before and who's done a couple of FP1s for McLaren, and Bearman in, who's a rookie. But I think, with Komatsu in charge, again, his words were the kind words we heard about Ollie. So he certainly believes in the talent there. And I think, again, Palou's an established, versatile driver who did used to race in Europe. His stock is through the roof right now. I think they'd be silly to look away from that. And that's all 10 teams done. Probably the one I'll get the most heat for, not included anyway, is Kimi Antonelli. Do I think he'll cook? Absolutely. Do I think he's got a chance at Logan Sargent's seat? Absolutely. I don't know. I just believe in Logan. And I think, Kimi's time will come. But I don't know if that'll be in 25. But that also means there's 5 drivers on the current grid who will be completely out of F1. Of according to me, according to these predictions in 25. Perez, Bottas, Stroll, Magnussen and Joe. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. My name's been Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one.